everyone. Welcome to my show. Autumn is here. I am your host, Francine Crawford, and today we have a very interesting guest. Her name is Bonnie Brendel, and she is the Anxiety Avenger. Now, that's interesting. I know you all want to hear about that, so let's welcome her to the show. Welcome, Bonnie. How are you?
Oh, doing great. Thank you, Francine, for asking me to join you today.
Well, thank you so much. This is so interesting. So you are a
eco-psychotherapist. I'm a psychotherapist, and part of my specialty is nature-based work with people. So ecotherapy.
Okay. That's awesome. So tell me a little bit more about yourself.
Okay. Well, I call myself the Anxiety Avenger because when I retired from 25 years as an educator, and I also have been during that time a therapist and transformational coach, I'm fully now into helping people figure out the roots of their anxiety and what strategies they can use without medication to reduce that anxiety and unblock it, because anxiety really is just blocked energy that hasn't been released from the mind and body. That's all it is. It's complicated and it's simple at the same time.
Wow. Well, how did you get into that? What made you want to do that?
Well, as a kid, I was kind of thrown into that. I would be considered a highly sensitive person, really sensitive to sound and light and vibration and the outer world. And as a kid, I was growing up in a highly dysfunctional family. And so I turned to animals very early on to help ground myself and to have maybe what people would think of as imaginary friends. As a kid, when I read Charlotte's Web, a lot of folks have read that book, right? And I really resonated with Charlotte, who was able to save Wilbur the pig, who was going to be eaten for Christmas dinner, and save him in his panic attacks because she was able to write complimentary adjectives about him in her web up in the barn. And people immediately thought he was a miracle and his life was saved and all the good things. So she was a really big guide for me as a kid when I needed support, and I couldn't get that from the people around me. So it started way back then when I was a little kid. But as I progressed into teenage and early adulthood, my own debilitating panic disorder and agoraphobia became worse and worse. And I had gotten myself into college, which was not an easy step from where I started. And I thought I was free and my life was starting and I was going to get into the equine science and business program that I was in. And unfortunately, my anxiety just exploded and I was unable to get to and stay in classes. So I had to drop out after my first semester. So that was life-changing, and that's sort of where the book started. The memoir part of the book is about that, and where do you go from there? It's kind of what I explored in it.
How do you recognize that it is something that is debilitating? Like, how, people deal with anxiety all the time, and they do some things and maybe meditate or whatever, and then it subsides and they continue going. How do you recognize when it's the time where you need extra help or outside help, or it's just too much?
That's such a great question. I think any time for any of us, outside help, meditation, yoga, Al-Anon for me, family groups of alcoholics, therapies of all kinds can help any of us at any time, no matter what level of anxiety we might be dealing with. But for me, it got to a point where with agoraphobia, I had to drop out of college, so I really thought my life was over at 18 when that happened. And then I was stuck at home with agoraphobia, which is a fear of being out in the world, and it comes from having panic attacks over and over again until you start avoiding a lot of places and things you might have been doing and going to, and it gets smaller and smaller, and you get stuck at home. And so I left college. I was stuck at home with the people I didn't want to live with anymore, and I didn't know, I couldn't stay there at the same time. I was there, but I was like, I can't stay here. So it was a really dark time that I've fully recovered from, like a lot of people do. But at that time, I had to make a decision whether to go on or not. And the good decision I made, the wonderful decision I made, was to pick up the phone and call a therapist. And that started to change my life right there.
Okay, so up until then, you kind of started withdrawing and isolating yourself.
I did. It's little by little, kind of like a death by a thousand cuts. It was, go to a movie theater, have a panic attack, can't do that. Get on an elevator, no more of that. Take a train, fly on a plane. It just gets smaller and smaller until people are pretty unable to get out there in the world and function. And it cost me a lot of opportunities as a young person.
Okay. So as far as treatment, how did treatment help you? How do you, go about getting treatment, or how do you know which treatment is going to help you? How do you go about that?
Oh, such a big question. I love it.
Sorry.
It's great. It's a great one because it's scary, right? People thinking about needing help, not knowing where to turn for it, being afraid to connect with a therapist. I mean, let's be real. People worry about being mind controlled. People assume that a therapist is someone who thinks that they know your life better than you do, which is not how it works. But that is, why should I talk to you? You don't even know me, right? And it's not that. It's not about that. It's about building that framework to help you discover yourself. And looking for a therapist, it's like shopping, because when you access the connection to a therapist, that relationship has to feel right to you. And it's really hard because when you're looking for a therapist, you're not in a great place, probably, like I wasn't, or at least you're struggling with something, right? And you really have to shop for the right person. If that fit doesn't feel great right away, try somebody else. Keep going, move on. Don't stick with somebody who you're not comfortable with. But yeah, there's a lot of types of therapies and types of therapists out there that people can try, and just look for the fit that makes you feel like yourself.
Okay, so you're an eco psychotherapist. So does that means that you work with more natural things and more nature?
I choose to work in modalities that are natural. So a psychotherapist is working with your mindset and your story and your speech, and an ecotherapist is working specifically through connections to nature to help people in the ways that they need to move forward. And so I put both of those things together because the nature piece is very, very strong for me, but I also function in several other non-medical evidence-based energy therapies that help people to reduce their anxiety as well, like EFT tapping and Jin Shin Jitsu and polyvagal theories, working on stimulating the ventral vagus nerve that calms respiration, slows the heart rate, brings us back down, and Buteyko breathing technique. So those are all things that are all modalities that are useful to help people reduce anxiety without medication. And the nature piece, getting reconnected to nature, which is a thing that, to our detriment as a society, we have really disconnected from where we came, right? We weren't born to drive cars, to text on phones, to be talking to each other through computers, to be sitting in an office building, right? All that stuff is completely unnatural to who we are, right? And so if we don't get back out there, both in the physical and in the imagination, if we don't get back out there and connect with our source, it's really hard to stay grounded. And that's why so many people suffer from anxiety so much.
Wow. Okay, so anxiety leads to stress. It's stressful, and it leads to stress. And stress can cause physical illnesses and mental illnesses. There's so many different things that stress can cause. So tell us the effect of that.
Well, the effect of anxiety, one thing is people hear the word and they kind of back off from, like, I don't have anxiety. What are you talking about? Well, how's your relationship with your spouse or your kids or your coworkers? Do you fly off the handle easily? Do you withdraw because you can't deal with all the stimulation? Or are you struggling with boundaries when other people are approaching you in an inappropriate manner? All of that stuff becomes anxiety, right? If we don't know how to handle ourselves in those situations. And it comes out either exploding on others or withdrawing from others most often, right? And people say, oh, I'm not anxious. Like, well, no, but you're not talking to anybody. You're not engaging. You're shut down. Or every time I try to talk to you, you get so angry, you start yelling. And, it's all that stuff is anxiety. It's just labeled at different sadness and anger and rage and fear and all the things. Just in a ball. We all have them.
Yeah, we do. We do. Well, sometimes when people have anxiety, they just think that they can manage it. They don't want to be associated with something that they cannot control. So they'll just say, oh, it's okay. I'll just have to do this and whatever. I'll be okay. I'll be okay. And sometimes it progresses, into something else and manifests into something else. So how would you say is like, because my show, we talk about how to help caregivers and family members to help their parents and aging parents and things like that. And how do they recognize it and then go about getting some assistance?
I love the fact that you focus on seniors and their families and others who need caregivers. Oh, a lot of stress, right? A lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, a lot of confusion can come in those situations, in those relationships, and we can lose patience. We can become impatient with each other, or not understand, why are you doing this, or what does it mean when you say that? Thinking specifically, my work with seniors to help them be able to ground themselves in those energetic ways and the nature way that I just described to you, because often they have a limited ability to get out and go places and do things. Like sometimes that's a situation, right? And the caregivers are trying to help them, and they can sometimes have a lot of rage and depression and fear and confusion about, for us elders, where we go next, or how they can manage themselves. And so that comes out in that relationship, and then between the caregiver and the person who needs the care is sometimes very difficult because they're bumping up against each other with misunderstandings. So to help people in those situations, the families, the caregivers, those being cared for, to reduce anxiety and learn stress management strategies they can use for themselves and share with others, takes the heat out of all of that really difficult, real stuff that people go through every day.
Mm-hmm. So can I ask you for just a couple of examples of stress management? What would it look like? Is it something that's easy for people to do, or is it something that's difficult, or do they need other outside things like equipment or something like that?
Some of it can be very, very easy. Okay. And depending on a person's ability to think and express and move, everyone's different, right? Anytime that people can incorporate physical movement, moves the energy of the body. When we sit and we don't get to move ourselves, then things can get pretty sticky and pretty blocked. A couple of things that are really simple every day. I have in your show notes, you have my 5 top tips. So every morning, first thing I do in the morning is drink water. I hydrate myself very first thing. When your brain is not hydrated enough, your mood can really sink. And that can start your day off in a place nobody wants to be, right? And taking a few moments for gratitude for all the losses that people suffer who need caregiving, and all the losses that caregivers go through by having to focus on the work that they do. There are still things we can all be grateful for. They can be as simple as, oh, yay, I'm so glad I made enough dinner last night because now there's leftovers for tonight and I don't have to cook. To, wow, my son is helping me out so much right now. I'm really grateful for the fact that he shows up all the time, right? Anything of those natures will do. And then the nature therapy piece, if folks can get outside, get outdoors, just connect with the greenery of the world, the trees, the bushes, the birds, the squirrels, listen to the animals moving, just be out there in nature. And if not, we all have an imagination. We've all been in those places and we can go back there, right? And sit with that. And that can be calming. Just imagining, Francine, for your favorite natural place you've ever been in, and you sat for 5 minutes with your eyes closed and just was there, right? I can see right now just happening in your face, like, oh yeah, that feels really great.
I just thought about Colorado. They had these awesome parks that was amazing and natural and beautiful birds all around. I remember going there and just sitting there and it was like,
Oh, I'm so blessed to live here. Colorado is so lovely. And I grew up on the North Shore of
Oh,
Massachusetts.
wait a minute. Is that where you are?
Yeah, I'm in
Oh,
Colorado.
I didn't know. I didn't know. That's just one of the places that I've gone that I really, I don't.
Well, that's so funny, but you described it perfectly.
Yeah, yeah. I remember just going to a park. It was like, this is a park. I'm from New York, so I'm like, this is a park.
It's a vast expanse. Yeah, it's just a park. But yes, Colorado is lovely. And I grew up on the North Shore of Massachusetts, right on the ocean, which is another lovely natural space that I can go to when I need to do that. And then, to people who have pets or have had pets, to reconnect with them, even pets who have moved on from us, just remember what it felt like to engage with them, what their fur felt like, what we used to do with them. All of that stuff is still inside. It's still in there. We can access it and be in that joy again. It's really important to do that.
What would you say to people who feel like it's a stigma to it, it's a shame to it? Like, how do you get through that so you can get help or tell somebody, even just a family member?
Oh, so glad you asked that. And before I answer that, stigma, we're staying right there. I'm going to go back for just a sec. You asked for simple techniques, and I wanted to give you two that help me.
Okay.
In Jinshin Jitsu, which is a Japanese energy-based modality, it's all about connecting the energy pathways in the body. There are finger holds where we can connect the energy pathways to calm ourselves. And on your hand, you have 5 fingers. The thumb when we're talking about the things that we struggle with, the thumb can represent anxiety. Index finger, fear. Middle finger, anger. Bet couldn't figure that one out. Right? To think about that for a sec.
Oh, wow.
Ring finger, sadness, and pinky finger, pretense. And so for me, a person who has dealt with anxiety and never is going back to that place again, I hold my thumb and index finger, fear and anxiety. And you can just hold them with the other hand firmly but gently. And that will complete an energy circuit in your body that helps you to release the anxiety and fear. Or if you're really angry about something, wrap your middle finger. Really flat, like that, right? And so every night I go to bed, I go to sleep with my hands like this, holding my thumb and my index finger. And it immediately helps me to relax. Yeah, it really does. And then a really simple breathing technique that anybody can do, and nobody needs to know you're doing it, that will decrease your heart rate, is box breathing. And all you need to do is remember the number 4. You breathe in for 4. You hold your breath for 4. You let it out for 4. You hold your breath again out for 4. So it's breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4. And when you're holding that breath, what that does is change the CO2 levels in your bloodstream. So it lowers your blood pressure. So people will say, take a deep breath. Okay, that helps. But if you take that breath through your nose, hold it, release it, hold it again, it will bring your blood pressure down. And you can do that anywhere. Nobody knows you're doing it.
Okay, question of breathing. Through your nose rather than through your mouth. Does it go in your nose and come out your mouth? Everything is in through your nose, in your nose, and
it's in your nose, out of your nose. The nose is designed for breathing, and the mouth is designed for speaking and eating. The way that the nose is designed is when you breathe out through your nose and then breathe out through your mouth, you'll feel the dehydration after a little bit when you're mouth breathing. When you're breathing out through your mouth, you are dehydrating your body much more than when you're using your nose to do that. So when mouth breathing, if you can think of, I caught myself mouth breathing. Oh yeah. You can press your tongue up to the top of the roof of your mouth, where there's lots of nerves up there that stimulate and relax the body as well. Push your tongue up, roof of your mouth, and breathe through your nose whenever possible.
Wow, that's interesting. I am a mouth breather.
Lots and lots of people are, but yeah, you lose a lot of hydration.
Yeah, yeah. Oh wow, that's very interesting. It's very interesting. So, what is it that you would want someone to know that is caring for someone, things to look out for, anything that we want to talk about? We also might want to talk about some myths that people might have around, around stigmas and myths around this of being anxiety and things like that. So, what would you tell someone to help them in this situation?
Yeah, so the word stigma was really, really good, really powerful word for this. Whether people are caregiving, being cared for or not, the stigma around anxiety, around anything that is considered mental health. I don't know why we've created it. It's been around forever. I don't know why we shame ourselves and each other about it, because there isn't one of us who has not suffered from anxiety, or at least a situational depression, a sadness you can't get out of, losing control of our anger, being rageful and losing control. Every single one of us deals with anxiety,
Mhm.
and so, and you can see it now more. I mean, you're in New York, I'm in Colorado, we're here in the US, and people have been feeling like that others are trying to divide us and pit people against each other, and people are protesting. And I mean, that if we're not expressing the stuff that's bringing up, that becomes anxiety, right? And it comes out somewhere.
Yeah.
It's like a prairie dog popping up from a hole. They're good. It's going to keep popping up. You can't hold it like this and put it away and think, oh, I'll just go on and nobody will know. Oh no, can't, none of us can do that. So anxiety is just part of life, right? It can be useful. When I go onto stage, sometimes I feel a little nervous energy, right? A little bit of anxiety, which keeps me sharp, which helps me be ready. But the kind of anxiety that keeps people awake at night, that makes people sad and angry, that's different. But every single one of us shares it. So if we could just talk about that, just put that out there and begin expressing it for ourselves, maybe there's one person you can think of in your life that you would trust enough to say, I'm really struggling with this. 9 times out of 10, that person is going to say, you too?
Yeah.
I thought I was the only one. Right? No, it's not. And so when I was a kid, I didn't talk to anybody about the incredible anxiety I was dealing with.
Mhm.
Anybody human, let me say. Right? I would talk to Charlotte when I was little. I would talk to my dog. And I discovered horses at 10 years old, and that completely changed my life. And still into horses and all the things now. But I started talking to them, and I talk to trees, and I still do that today. I will go for my morning walk with the trees in the park. Good morning, you guys. Thanks for being here again to provide shade and oxygen and hold the soil from being eroded and giving homes to the birds. You guys are amazing. I got to tell you, I'm struggling with this today. For people who are uncomfortable talking to other people about that stuff, you don't have to start that way. Go talk to a tree, talk to an animal, talk to a squirrel. They'll listen and they won't judge you. But getting it out of yourself is a first step.
Yeah. So let me ask you one question about support groups.
Mhm.
Now, is there a particular time when you think that people have to decide whether they're ready for a support group because telling everyone is harder, or is it that there are some people who are okay with just kind of starting like that? Is support group something that you do later, or it's okay to do that in the beginning when you realize that you have anxiety?
Oh, glad you asked about support groups because they're so important. And there's so many different kinds.
Okay.
It's so when I was, oh God, I remember this so well. When I was 20 years old, went to my first therapist. Like, okay, I was lucky. The first therapist I met, guy who was maybe 6 or 7 years older than me at the time, he was just what I needed at the moment. He was great. Young guy, running his practice. He was just what I needed. And I was working with him individually for a while, and I'm like, okay, he's helping me figure some things out. Great. And then one day he suggests I go to the group down the hall. And I'm like, oh, heck no. Oh, no way. I am not going to sit in a circle with a bunch of other people and talk. No, hell no. Mm-mm. He's like, just try it once. I'm like, no. Took a few months. Finally, I'm like, okay, I relented. I sat down and first couple times I didn't say keep. I just listened to other people and I was like, um, they're all having the same stuff that I've got going on right now. And nobody is making fun of anyone else. Nobody is putting anybody else down. It's just everybody's putting it out there and sharing and suggesting, and the facilitator is helpful. I ended up loving it. It was really, really helpful. So even now, for in my own practice, I do small group coaching up to 10 people as a max, online or in person if they're here. But online, I gather people for exactly that kind of thing. And we have a monthly membership thing where I come on live a couple times a month and we talk about things, and then people can email me with questions. And that's a group kind of thing. And then in regular therapy, if you get in with a health plan or hospital, there's always a group situation available as well as individual. And it really helps because you recognize you're not alone. You're not weird. You're not crazy. But people are going through the same thing.
Right.
And we help each other. Yeah.
Well, that's mainly what my podcast is about, is that you're not alone. Other people are going through the same thing that you're going through, and to, make rise of different things that they can get help for, So is there anything else that you think that the audience should know, that we might need to do or recognize or anything like that?
Well, any of us who are dealing with anxiety or emotions maybe that we can't identify or are struggling to control, because that was when I first went into therapy, I couldn't have named what my emotions were. I was allowed to have them as a kid. It's like, no way. Put a lid on that. So I really didn't know what they were. And that, the beginning of that early therapeutic experience helped me to be able to understand what the emotions were, where they were coming from, and then learning how to manage it. And I did many other things beyond individual therapy to help myself, right? With meditation and yoga and fitness and different types of therapy like EFT tapping, like EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And I just went out there, I'm like, I'm going to experiment with everything because I know one thing. The number of people in this country and not elsewhere, but I understand the U.S. a lot better. The number of people in the U.S. who are on anxiety medications consistently to get through their days. Like we weren't designed to medication. The lack of medication is not our problem. You would think that, right? That's not the problem. The lack of medication is not the problem in most cases. Some disorders absolutely need medication, but so many people are on anxiety meds because they don't talk about it. They haven't been able to find the right kind of help, and not using the energetic therapies that sometimes are considered woo-woo, but that other cultures, Eastern cultures especially, have worked with as medical practice for thousands of years. There's something that lasts for thousands of years, like Jinshin and acupuncture and acupressure. Those things have helped people to be well centuries upon centuries. It's and we in the U.S. tend to reject a lot of that, but that's what works. It's what works for me without medication. So anybody who's not feeling great in their heart, in their head, whose relationships are strained, who's going to work on Monday, like, hating to go to work on Monday and then leaving on Friday and going drinking with their friends, or, addiction. How much of a problem is addiction in this country? It's all it is. Everything that underlies all of those conditions is not getting the mind-body care that we need. That's it. Comes down to that.
Okay. All right. Well, that's great. But listen, I have to ask you something. I know my show is about caregivers and supporting their aging adults and different things like that. But you mentioned something, and just my curiosity. How do parents deal with their children when they notice something and like how do they recognize that there's something extra happening and to get help from them? How do they deal with their child that may be going through anxiety? How do they recognize it? How do you, what would you say to that?
I would say 25 years in public education, mostly as a middle school teacher.
Mhm.
I have something to say about that, 'cause I do. Uh, oh gosh, the whole just opened up for me. The number one thing of parents watching their kids is a change in their behavior at school, change in their friend group, changes in their activities. So your kids, doing okay, and suddenly their grades are failing, or you're getting reports home from the teachers that you didn't get before, right? Um, or they dropped a group of friends and picked up another group of friends, or they're not talking to a friend that you used to see come over to the house every day after school or whatever. If they're withdrawing, if they're on their devices all the time, they're shutting their bedroom doors, they're not talking to you. If those are changes in their behavior, those are red flags right away. Sometimes also I don't feel good, I don't want to go to school today, I have a stomach ache. Oh gosh, the number of parents, if he just won't go. Like, yeah, okay, he's got to go to school, and it's not what he's telling you. The problem isn't what he's telling you. It is, the kid is struggling with something way deeper. But kids are very anxious today. Sort of in the general sense, they have a lot to worry about, right? The kind of role models that you and I probably looked to in our lives outside of our families are not as available to kids as they used to be. They worry about the environment, whether the world's going to like burn up before, they're adults. That's really, what they're thinking about. And they get on chats and they're talking to people. And another thing, your kid becomes, middle schoolers become secretive because that's part of coming away from the parent. But your kid's doing a lot of things and not telling you what they're doing anymore. They can be pulled into chats online that are unsafe for them.
Mhm.
So it's really important for parents to manage their kids' screen time. And man, I know that is a whole ball of wax trying to do that. And lead by example. At least when you come home in the evening, your phone goes off and the kid's phone goes off by a certain time, and they don't take them to their bedroom. I need an alarm clock. Great. Buy a cheap one on Amazon and, press the button. They don't need their phones in their room. They don't need televisions in their room. They're so addicted to their devices now to just, I can't deal with what's going on around me. So I'm just and they bully each other. There's a lot of cyberbullying on that. So just watch for changes in your kids that aren't explainable and that are usually negative. In those cases, because they can go down the hill pretty quickly. And parents are busy, it's up in the morning. It's like, okay, kiddo, let's go. We got to get to school. And parents miss a lot, because they're just trying to keep food on the table and take care of what they have to do each day. But really paying attention to that and staying in conversation with your kid about what's going on. It's
Okay.
really important.
Yeah, I just, when you just stepped, you touched on that, and I just kind of had to ask that because if you don't pick up on it, and if this child is going through stuff, eventually it gets worse, and then they can be a difficult adult and have anxiety. They can carry this. People carry this all through their life, and you wonder why some people are irritable or hard to get along with or whatever, and it carries on into their life if they don't ever get any help. And it helps. It helps for if a parent could kind of be aware of this, not be afraid to ask certain questions or get them help or things like that, so they don't become a troubled adult and make them more difficult to have a better quality of life.
Exactly. And then we all have to grow up to be able to get along with other people. And often we seek a partner we want to share life with. And, if those skills and those emotional comforts aren't available, it's very hard to, I look at my own family, my own siblings. Whew, wow. Yeah, a lot of things went wrong when we were younger. So it's been a struggle. And for me, the struggle was debilitating anxiety that I've been really, really really blessed to be able to get through and no longer live with. I mean, not to say anxiety never comes to visit, it does, but I show at the door in a way that I didn't when I was younger. But, that was close. Things were close. Survival was not always, 100% guaranteed.
Right. I've spoken to people who have become caregivers of their parents and they didn't have the greatest relationship, but now that their parent needs them, they want to do it kind of reluctantly because they know they didn't get along and things like that. And it could have been because, because of anxiety, because of different things that were happening as they were growing up, they could not connect. And they both grew with this anxiety or this, you know what I mean? So now they feel like they're forced to do it. And because it's their parent, their grandparent, whatever, they do it, but it's harder for them.
So much harder.
Yeah.
And that's what those caregivers really need support.
Yeah.
Those caregivers need to be talking to other caregivers, maybe in support groups, maybe with therapists. They need support because that is a huge lift. When you have a great relationship with someone, it's huge,
right.
Right? Every day to take care of someone. Never mind someone that you have resentments and difficulties with. That's a big ask. Really.
Yeah.
They need to support. They need to be able to have a backdrop to work from and not just be alone with that.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you would like to say?
Of course. Well, if you have another minute, I'd love to read you a paragraph out of my book, Cracking the Crazy Maker's Code.
Absolutely.
Always asked me, what's a crazy maker? What do you exactly mean? And I know that your audience is going to recognize exactly what I'm saying. So I put my old lady glasses on here. So here's the cover. Cracking Crazy Maker's Code. 9 Simple Steps to Ease Your Anxiety. It's a very easy to access memoir. And I built into it a printable guided journal for folks to start taking a path forward. So if calling a therapist tomorrow isn't on your game plan, you can start working with the path that I started to take myself when I started to think that I need to get myself out of the situation I'm in. And so I built that for the reader. But here's the answer to what exactly is a crazy maker. Sometimes crazy makers are the people who raised us or with whom we've lived or worked. They can also be unhealthy belief systems from generations before us that code negativity and fear in us. Or they can be traumas we've endured or witnessed that hold us hostage in our pain. The crazy maker's code is the sum of negativity you've been taught to believe about yourself. This code may have defined and created your sense of self-worth from an early age, but it serves no purpose in your current life or reality. The good news is the code can be broken, and you can free yourself from the crazy makers that hold you back so you can begin living your very best life. And that's what I did with this book. It's my step to being able to share with people, what do I do? This is how I feel. What do I do now? And that's why I wrote it.
Well, it's great that you pay it forward. You've gone through it. You know how hard it is. You've experienced it, and you've been able to come through it. And not only do that, but to actually pay it forward and help others. So thank you for that.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be able to help other people who struggle.
This is very helpful. I thank you so much for reaching out. I appreciate it. And I love talking about this topic because it's something that everyone, if they're honest, at one point in time, they have gone through or are going through now.
Absolutely. Yes. And so when your audience sees your show notes, there's a freebie in there of my 5 top tips of the 5 things I do every single day to keep myself managed that are absolutely doable by anybody else. So that's there for your audience to pick up for free. And then you have the sites, my website and such that are there as well.
I'll add that to this absolutely because I'm sure there's someone out there. And then, I love that it's something accessible to them. It's something that can start them, and maybe after they've gone and used your book or went through it, they might seek help, it may encourage them to seek help. Yeah. Sometimes you have to take baby steps. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. I talk to trees, and that's the way my book is. I know what taking baby steps looks like.
I gotta go find a tree.
They're so gracious. They'll just listen and, no judgment. And they'll show up tomorrow on time. Great.
Okay, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Bonnie. I really appreciate that. Okay. All
Bye,
right.
everybody.
Bye. Take care.